Welcome to Private Banking Strategies Podcast with Vance, Lowe, and Seth Hicks, your secret weapon to protect your assets and never have to start over financially again. Vance and Seth help high net worth individuals, families, business owners, and investors structure an asset-protected, tax-free fortress for their families. Learn how to keep what you earn and use the velocity of money to create your own private banking system. Join us on this journey as we explore the secret strategies of the rich and political elite and help you take total control of your financial security. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Private Banking Strategies with Vance Lowe and Seth Hicks. Vance and Seth, what's going on?
Hey, it's great to be alive today, even in a world of disorganization, but it's fun to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here, Darren. We're excited about this podcast with you and looking forward to jumping into content.
That's excellent. Fantastic. Now, I have to say, guys, I am very excited to be here with you. I am the new guy on the block, but I'm eager to learn from both of you gentlemen. So, Vance, I understand that you'll introduce the show topic with the audience. So, what do you have on the agenda today?
Well, today, we base the topics on some of the experiences we have kind of on a regular basis, and some of the topics are a little bit seasonal. So there's sometimes of the seasons that we tend to spend more money than other times. Could be, getting into education, in the early fall. It could be vacation, so to speak, in the springtime, wanting to get out. And then in the winter, it could be spending money on Christmas or whatever else. And so we're kind of in the middle of one of those seasons right now. And I think it's general that we talk about it, but we end up spending the money. We decide we're going to spend some money, and sometimes we try to do budgets and we do a lot of saving. We do all kinds of things to meet our expectations that we want, but we're always under some sort of guideline. We only have a limited amount of income. We only have so much. And if we're prudent and live within our means, that's even harder. So if we're going to spend the money anyway, and then this might be the topic of today, why not make arrangements to get the money back? If we can get the money back, then we can make the interest or the profits that the people who end up with the money are going to get. So let's explore that a little bit. Seth, what can you add to that, in this season?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when people first hear that, Darren, they think, how do I get my money back? I have to spend, $200 on my utility internet connection and phone service. I've got to pay for my electricity, my gas bill, my water bill, my trash and sewage. I've got to pay for just general expenses on a monthly basis that just flow right out. I've got to pay generally a car payment, may have to pay a house payment. And so those are typical expenses that most Americans have. And we like to use an automobile example to prove that people can get the money back a lot of times. And we've got an example from one of the mentors and original OGs, we call him Nelson Nash in the infinite banking concept world, who actually utilized this with his own family members. And he had two twin sisters that were nieces of his. And one strategy, one employed another. And we're going to take a quick look at that, not do a super deep dive. And Vance is going to walk us through that illustration. And we're going to prove to you how you can get the money back, and how not only you can get the money back that you're spending on an automobile expense in this particular case, but that at the end of the road, you will have significantly and parabolically increased your wealth over the alternative methods of financing, even paying cash, just piling up cash and then buying an automobile by cash versus using our methodology in the private banking strategies world and show you exactly what your wealth curve will be at the end of that road. So Vance, I'll hand you back the mic and we'll dig a little deeper into twin sisters.
Okay. All of this stems on a couple of strategies that we live by and don't even know. And it's called a get back to zero strategy. We've been taught by our mentors, our parents, and the people that we trust, that the best way to get through life is to pay cash for everything. Well, I'm here to tell you that's just 100% fallacy, because we still end up financing everything 100%. Everything we purchase throughout life, we finance. And that's one of two ways. Either we pull money out of production and buy the item. And once we buy the item, where does that leave us? It leaves us back to zero if we've saved it up and we can't put it to work. Okay, so normally if we have excess money, we've got it working for us. A lot of people think they have their money working for them when they don't. A lot of people will show me when I ask the question, well, show me your assets that you have working, producing income for you or money for you. They'll show stock accounts, mutual funds, they'll show portfolios, they'll show 401ks, IRAs, or anything else. And they're absolutely shocked when I tell them and prove to them that you've put all that money to sleep, because you have to leave that money in those accounts only to collect interest. You can't use it, you can't pull it out. And the problem are the people who are using the money. We believe that they'll double your money on the average almost every 2.5 years. 2.5 to 5 years, they're going to double your money. How many of your accounts have doubled, at all? So it's called a get back to zero strategy. Everything, in life, when we think we're doing the right thing, it's still, we end up losing the money. We spend it, it doesn't come back. Another catchphrase what we use is, what arrangements have you made this month to get last month's expenses back? So if I were to ask you that, what would you say?
I would say I haven't made any.
You'd say it's impossible. Well, it goes along, everyone's heard. And sometimes people say, well, I don't think I've ever heard that. I kind of don't believe it. I've been around the block for a while. You can never, ever spend principal. Everybody thinks that. The Warren Buffetts, Donald Trumps, all the successful families out there never spend principal. So what do you do with it? Also, and here's the secret, guys, do the banks always get the money back? What's the answer to that?
I would say banks always get their money back.
They always. Some people I've heard now, 9 out of 10 say, yeah, they always get it back. And then that one will say, well, there's loans that default. No. Banks don't risk their money. And it's called collateralization. If banks lend out $100,000, they'll want $1 million worth of collateralization. And they'll keep going if they can get more than that. They want control of everything. So this getting back to zero, when it comes to cars are a great thing, because cars are one of the largest purchases that we make. And people decide, hey, I'm going to buy a new car, but to get the value, I'm going to drive it till it, falls apart. Other people say, hey, I'm making a good income, so I'm going to upgrade my car every 2 or 3 years. Even today, in today's economy, the American automobiles industry and the American cars that we have here can be of great value if you know how to use them. And they are a tool. I really enjoy playing with people when I ask them if they have a car payment. A lot of people say, no, I've paid off my car. And I go, that's really, really interesting. So the only way you convince me you don't have a car payment is if you've torn up your driver's license and you're never driving again. Because what's happening to the vehicle? Oh, well, it's wearing out and eventually you'll need another one. So my guru, who really helped me along the path here on vehicles, put in a seminar book an illustration on how to finance vehicles. And he had, at the time, all these experiences in his book were on his family. Now, he was older. He had some twin nieces They were identical twins. And the story he goes on to tell how identical they were is really something, I guess. I never saw him, but he set up a financing situation for the both of them to be able to finance vehicles. A lot of people will put money in a CD because CD is really a fast start. If you want something very, very short term, then, not now anymore. This was back when they were paying 6, 7, 8, 9% interest on CDs. And you'd put money in there over time. I did that personally. I would save up my money in a CD, and then I would pull it out and go purchase my car. So they did that. He did 2 illustrations. He says, okay, you guys want to use the CD, but I've got another plan for you. If you'll put the amount of savings, which is $5,000 a year, into a contract that I want to show you, it's an old style banking contract. Let's just compare over a lifetime what the 2 differences are. And so he went 7 years of them accumulating $5,000 a year. I don't know. I think, Seth, what we'll do is we'll provide this paperwork for them, these illustrations, should they ask for it, because this is all, spelled out. So he did that. He also showed if they did it in a CD. Okay. And at the end of 7 years, there was, and I'm going to look off to the side here so I've got the exact numbers that are in the book. The CD person had $41,000 plus some change, and the person in the policy had $35,000. So there was quite a big difference. He goes in and tells a story about the twin sisters communicating with each other, and we would do that on a separate basis. I'm just trying to touch the highlights here. But there was enough in both of these accounts for these 2 girls to start financing. And what they did is they took out $10,500 to finance part of their first car. They may have had a trade-in or something else, but that's the amount they financed. And they set up a repayment schedule. This is where people go wrong. They don't pay themselves back. They take the cash, buy the item, but now you have to realize you have to pay yourself back. So you've got the money back again to do it over again. And therefore you break out of the get back to zero strategy. So they paid themselves back annually. Now this is like $166 and some change per month, $3,030 per month. Both of them did. Okay. In the CD, I think
Per year. It's per year.
Yeah, per year. Excuse me.
Let me just interject one moment. So we've got 2 different sisters. One's going to use a private banking strategy, the contract that Vance is describing. One is going to use savings through a CD methodology. At the end of 7 years, the CD sister has $41,000. The person who used the private banking strategy, the other niece, the sister, she had just under 36. So CD sister saying, "See, I'm right. I make more out of a CD."
Yeah, she was just hammering the other one.
Yeah, hammering the other sister. Yeah, you made a mistake. Nelson doesn't know what he's talking about. Our uncle's crazy. So they finance their first car. Apparently, they buy the exact same cars, and they utilize the $10,550 of the CD for the one sister, and they use $10,550 from the private banking contract that we're describing the other sister. So that's just to summarize and recap the foundation that we're laying. And they're paying back themselves, both of them, $3,030 a year. So that's just under $300 a month that they're making car payments. CD sister's paying it back into her bank CD, and the other sister's paying it back into her own private banking strategy.
Okay. So this goes on, until retirement, and they're paid back every 4 years. So every 4 years they upgrade their car, they trade it in, and they keep financing a new $10,500. So at age 65, they now compare. and the CD sister has $258,000 in her CD account. And the private banking strategy has just under $1 million in her policy. If they did everything exactly the same, why did the banking sister, the private banking sister, have over $700,000 more than that one in the CD? Have any guesses? I'm really interested in your comments here as you hear about this. Why would there be such a big spread?
Well, I'm excited to hear what you guys are going to say about this because the anticipation is building up. Over $700,000 in difference. That is pretty impressive.
Difference.
What do you have to say on that?
Let me explain that. Who owns the CD bank? Other people,
That's
right?
correct.
And they make all the profits. Well, these special contracts make you an owner of the life insurance company, and they pay profits in addition to the guaranteed account every single year, and those profits were added back in. In addition to that, she got a ton of life insurance, over $800,000 of death benefit paid for during that time as well. But the beauty part, Seth, starts right now. Seth, kind of walk them through. They're going to start taking cash out. They're now retired and they want to take income out, just for this one illustration.
Sure. So at retirement age, Darian, they've got very disparate amounts to draw from. The CD sister has let's call it $260,000. And the private banking strategy sister has just under $1 million. So they both start to draw down for retirement needs. And this illustration is a few decades old because these sisters, were younger when Nelson implemented this. So these numbers change with current day values, but the illustration still remains. So the CD sister pulls out $50,000 a year, and the private banking strategy sister pulls out $50,000 a year. Well, at the end of, as you can tell, 5.5 years, a little more than 5.5 years, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, then 34,000. The CD sister's out of money. Her retirement fund is totally depleted. Whereas the private banking strategies sister, she draws $50,000 down into death, and then she doesn't even use it all by the time she passes on. And the death benefit, you made one error, Vance, in discussing the death benefit. She didn't have $800,000 in death benefit. She had over $1 million in death benefit.
But by the time she dies, through life expectancy.
Right.
Because you see, the life insurance in these contracts grow every year, the death benefit amount. It increases every single year. So she could take $50,000 out for the rest of her life, however long that was, and still pass $1.3 million to heirs. Everybody buys cars, right? Why not do it a smart way? You don't have to pay a dime more. That's what we're trying to get at. There's a better way for you to finance and buy things. Okay, but you've got to set it up in advance. You've got to know how money works. So we've got to stop treating money like it's worthless. If I were a Martian, for instance, and I studied a couple and watched what they would do, they would go to work every single day, fight through traffic, maybe have problems at work because the boss is irate one day and they cut budgets on the next day, have to deal with all that, then turn around and pay Uncle Sam and everybody else before they get to bring home their paycheck. Okay? And then I watch them spend that as fast as they can so that they don't have anything left over at the end of the month.
Did that story feel like it was about you? Do you feel you should be making more progress toward your financial goals? Do you feel stuck? Let us help you get unstuck. Are you ready to take action and get your own private bank? Please call Private Banking Strategies at 817-200-4777 or visit us at www.privatebankingstrategies.com.
I would come back to my Martian superiors and say, hey, these guys hate money. They burn it as fast as they possibly can. People don't realize that if I spend $1, all I have to do is go back to work and earn another $1. Total fallacy. We're taught that, but it's wrong. You have to make money for your employer. And that's at least 3 to 1, but probably more, between 5 and 10 to 1, your efforts. And it could be a lot more. We think it's more like 25 to 1. You've got to make and produce $25 under your efforts and have it go through the system for you to get into your paycheck $1. 25 to 1. How fair is that? Because you got to pay everybody else. You got to make money for everybody else because you spend $1 for you to just replace that $1. Folks, how insane is that? Doing that every single month, every day, going back to work. Why not set up a strategy like the banks and get the money back? And then when you go to work and you bring home a new paycheck, it adds to the total. So we're ever increasing on a monthly basis rather than the average American either staying even or going further into debt. Seth, what is it about, where are we on the deficit these days?
I think it's 33 trillion, over 33 trillion in debt from the printing of money, effectively.
Effectively, yes. So one of the educations that we were denied was how to be independent. Schools used to teach people how to survive, how to be able to go out on their own and survive. And they taught how money worked. And that education was taken away when, I like to say, when our country was conquered back in 1900. It's the Federal Reserve was born during that time, and the Federal Reserve, I believe, has taken over pretty much everything, our government, everything else, and all the mandates that came down and the social programming started at that time. And I think after World War II, they announced a communist agenda of 46 or 48 things that had to occur in America. And that was completed at least 15 years ago. They had completed everything on the list. So where are we going, folks? We think, Seth and I feel that this is our salvation. If we understand how we can be totally independent, living literally off grid, we teach people how to set up their own economies. We used to give a little example of a gold coin. I've changed that to make it more realistic today. Literally, we had enough skills when we graduated high school to go out and start our own town, had we, retained that type of teaching. And in your own little town, of course, you're going to have some sort of a bank there. But let me give you a great example of the flow of money that's not happening in your lives. I'm on a trip and I'm almost out of gas, and there's a little town coming up, and I'm doing a calculation right now. Can I make it to the town after this one, or should I stop here to fill up with gas? Well, I decide to stop here, fill up with gas, pay $50 to the gas station, and now I'm gone. But town has a new $50, right? And a town exists to attract new money, whether it's from commerce, tourism, employment, whatever that town does, it's attracting new money coming in. It has to. And a successful town will attract more money coming in than they'll be losing, out the back door, so to speak. It's called Parkinson's Law. You can read about that in other books. But okay, so town now has a new $50. That gas station owner says, hey, I just got $50. I'm going to take it across the street to the grocery store. I'm going to buy $50 worth of groceries. So he brings back $50 worth of groceries, but now the grocery store has my $50. The grocery store owner says, hey, I sold inventory. So I want to go restock my shelves. So he goes across town to the warehouse, buys $50 worth of inventory, brings back $50 worth of product, and now the warehouse has my $50. Warehouse owner says, I'm going to go get my teeth fixed. So he goes to the dentist, gets $50 worth of dentist work done. Dentist turns around and says, I got to have my car fixed. He goes to the mechanic. Now the mechanic's got my $50. The mechanic turns around and takes it to the restaurant to treat his little daughter and his whole family to a birthday dinner, all in one day. So how much money did it take to accomplish that? It only took $50. But this happens in an economy, and it's called velocity. How many times can you get a dollar to stop to produce a dollar's worth of product or services? And it's the same dollars going over and over and over and over again. It's absolutely critical that we have that occur in our lives, and we can do that. But right now, it's escaping us. Once we spend the money, it's gone forever. Now, what would have happened, Seth, in town had I said, oh, I can make it to the next town, and I just blow by?
Well, that town doesn't have the capitalization in their economy to move from one service to the next and one good to the next.
Okay. We teach families how to get back 100% of their monthly expenses. We have never had a disagreement or somebody who hasn't agreed with that 100%. And this, again, during these times when we feel like we want to spend money, we want to go places. I've always believed, I'm not a budget person at all, but I've always believed when somebody tells me, hey, we want to take a $10,000 vacation, maybe every 3 or 4 years. Hey, go for it. The only thing I require is that you have the money in advance. Because I, as a financial consultant or whatever else, I want you to have the money and I want you to get the money back. This is way before I even knew about this strategy. We would talk about, sound money principles of having the money back in their accounts. Well, if we set up as a bank, the banks always get the money back. So now I'm going to ask you another question. How do the banks always, why? How and why do you think the banks always get the money back?
This is a lot to unpack, I have to say, from a customer standpoint, right? And for everyone listening today, you guys have done an excellent job breaking this down. Seth, before I answer that, I have 2 things that I want to ask you. And then Vance, I want to ask you a question as well. I want to start with you, Vance. You just said, and I don't mean to go completely off topic, but you did just say that you're not a budget guy. Can you explain what that means for you and the benefits of not being a budget guy?
I don't live by a budget. I don't set a budget out every month and then try to live by it. I'm not that particular. Most people are. Whatever works for somebody works. It's just me personally. I put everything on a credit card. Now I have to justify what I spend, to the credit card because I'm paying the credit card out every month. That's all I meant by
Beautiful.
budget.
Okay. All right. And then to answer your question, based on the logic that was presented today, I would say that the banks always get their money back by the flow of cash from other places, right? Just like you mentioned, $50 coming into a town, the bank's eventually going to get it back by passing hands down. Am I correct?
That is a really good observation, but incorrect.
Today. Can you please tell us?
Banks get the money back by obligation.
Obligation. Okay.
Now, what days of the week does a bank give away free money?
Oh, I'm going to be 0 for 2 today. What day does the bank? Look
They
at
don't. So if they don't give away free money and they get all the money back, they have
That's
to
correct.
lend it, don't they? Under contract. So all money, all resources with the bank presidents, everyone else at the bank, they can't just go take money out of the bank. They'll go to jail. Okay? So they have to borrow it just like everybody else. And that's what we're talking about. if we set up our own system, our own bank, we put all our money in our own bank, okay? And now we have to move money from our bank account to our personal account. That's the secret. We're not going to go into any more detail because, we spent kind of enough time talking about ways to get the money back and ways to use money much more smarter, ways to use money more than once. Inside the town, the reason the town gets so wealthy or prospers so much is called velocity. How fast can we move the money? Because every time it stops, it creates another dollar's worth. So, Seth, expound on that a little more if you want.
Sure. Yeah, well, the banks, they get the money back because they make loans, and they generally collateralize their loans. That means they secure their loans. They take a mortgage, a lien instrument against your car until it's paid off. They take a lien against your house till it's paid off. They take a lien against your business till it's paid off. And all of the people that are in that town example, let's say they all bank at the corner bank on First and Main, and it's Wells Fargo or Bank of America. So Bank of America has got multiple loans, one to the dentist, one to the mechanic for their businesses, one to the grocer for an equity line so he can make sure he's always got something on his shelves. And all that money flows right back into those banking entities. We're saying that there's a different way, and you can actually set up your own banking system where the money comes back to you, and you set up agreements between your banking entity and however you borrow the money. Let's say you have a business and you borrow that money out of your banking entity and you lien the business for the loan that's made to your business, or you may loan money to a third party and you collateralize that loan as well. And so all the money that's coming into your control, you set up and put it to work in other lending transactions so that money is flowing back to your bank. And that bank happens to be a whole life insurance contract that's carefully structured in the appropriate way, which you own a part of as an owner of the insurance company. You're getting paid dividends. And one of the things that we haven't said, the reason that this twin sister had so much more money at the end of retirement is because of the phenomenon of compounding interest. So the amounts in her bank compound and grow annually without any tax consequence at all. And so when you look at these summaries that we'll provide in the show notes or as a PDF to folks who want to look into the illustration, take a look at every 10th year and you'll see this money parabolically increasing for the sister who's using private banking strategy. And that's how she comes to $1 million in cash value at retirement age.
Yeah, so people always want to know, how do banks make money? Well, they do it this way, and they also cheat. We can get into that later. But if you look, this $700,000 difference is what other people made on people buying cars, and using that money. That's the money we lose if we don't take control and be the bank. Now, if this will create from, what was it, 25 years old till 65, $1 million, $10,500 of financing, what would that total be if we financed 21,000 during that time? Would it be twice as much? Yes. And if mom financed the $21,000 car and dad financed the $21,000 car under their own system, they'd have $4 million in the retirement account. What did they have to do? Where did they, did they have to tie it up somewhere? Did they have to go here? Did they have, no.
And that's an important part of this, is that they got to buy a car anyway. So
yeah.
You've got to earmark funds to purchase the car. And so whether you use the auto dealership to finance the car and they extend you credit, whether you use a CD, whether you use cash savings, you're going to have a car in our example. I mean, unless you live in Manhattan and you take the subway everywhere, that doesn't apply to most of the Americans in our culture. You have to have a car. you have to buy certain things, and that money that you're already earning that you have to pay for your car, you can do it in a different way. And instead of having, nothing at the end of that, you can have a whole lot. One thing I want to add too, the CD, when you look at the automobiles, okay, and let's just say that you hold it for 7 years, and each of these sisters, or let's just say you and I, we both hold an automobile for 7 years, and you finance that automobile through the car dealership. And at the end of your financing arrangement with the auto dealership, you don't owe them any more money. You own the car free and clear. Let's say it was $50,000 to start, and then after 7 years, it's worth 25. Let's say it's half that. You have a $25,000 asset and a $25,000 car. Me, I use the private banking strategy contract. I pay my own banking entity back. So the $50,000 that the car cost, it comes right back into my bank. At the end of that 7-year period, I have a car that's worth $25,000, just like you do.
There you go.
And I've got the $50,000 back, but not just the $50,000. I've got the interest, and I've got the annual compounding return year after year. So I've got 65,000 plus 25. Let's call it 80, 85, 90, and we'll use approximations. I've got a heck of a lot more than you do. You've got a depreciated asset worth $25,000, and I'm flush with cash, not just the 50,000, but the interest and compounding growing return. And I've got the asset of a $25,000 car. So there's a massive difference. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh,
to you,
100%. It makes sense to me. That's something that everyone here listening today should definitely take into. One, appreciation for what these guys are offering, and then two, reflect on what you guys are doing in your day-to-day life and see how you can switch to the private banking strategy, because it could be the difference, just like our gentlemen here have said in this example, difference between hundreds of thousands of dollars when it's all said and done.
And that's why we use something that's simple, like a car example, an auto purchase, an auto financing arrangement, because everybody generally has that type of arrangement. But you can also do the same thing with your homes, with your businesses. And another show, we'll get into how you can use this in a business. And there was a gentleman that Nelson Nash had in his family who had a foresting business, and he used a lot of heavy machinery, like expensive heavy machinery on a routine basis to clear forest, to process lumber. And he began to use his own private banking entity and contracts to finance his equipment purchases rather than using a third-party bank. And so you talk about an automobile scenario on steroids. That's what the equipment financing is. So you take it from just purchasing automobiles to utilizing it in your business. And instead of having a million, you've got multiple millions, maybe even tens of millions in that cash value. But we'll segue into another episode with that example.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to kind of put a
Yeah,
period.
Seth, let's tell people how they can kind of find out more. I always tell people we want to get you ready to take this for a test drive at no obligation. Kind of tell them how we do that.
Sure. Well, the first place that you learn about private banking strategies is on our website. It's privatebankingstrategies.com. That's privatebankingstrategies, all one word, .com. And there you'll have an offer that we give for a book that we like to call a red pill book that dives into some of these concepts. And we've made it available to folks in a PDF or in an audio version so that you can listen to it on the go, or you can read it if you're a reader. And that's our real entry point to understanding some of these concepts that we're talking about, like compounding interest, and how the banking system that most people use is really not a safe place to keep your money, and they're making money off of you, and you can actually make the money yourself. So once you've read that book, we have all of our podcasts available to our audience on our website, and you can start in various places. There's titles that may resonate with you over another. Take a look at a couple of the podcasts. If you want to just start from the very ground zero, start at number 1, where the intro is, and you can get some foundational block work and what we're doing there. If those things resonate with you, then you can schedule a call with Vance through an exploratory call process where he digs in deeper into your particular situation, your family, your finances, your motivations. and starts to begin that process with you in an exploratory call. So that's kind of our general starting point.
Fantastic. Vance and Seth, thank you for your tremendous insight today. I'm sure the audience has a few questions, but after this, they know exactly who to get in touch with. All thanks to you guys. So, guys, any last words before we wrap this up?
I just wish everybody out there to stay safe and think smart about money.
Very well said.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. All right, guys, thanks so much for the insightful day, and thank you to the audience for tuning in and supporting the Private Banking Strategy podcast with Vance Lowe and Seth Hicks. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, please hit that button below so that you're up to date when Vance and Seth come out with new episodes. And then lastly, if you have any questions, please email us or visit, like Seth said earlier, the privatebankingstrategies.com website as soon as you can. This podcast is about educating you, so we want to hear from you all. We also remind you to review and share this episode as it helps others find this show. Again, thank you for tuning in. From everyone here at Private Banking Strategies, this is Darion reminding you the secret of getting ahead is simply getting started. And we'll see you next time.
Did that story feel like it was about you? Do you feel you should be making more progress toward your financial goals? Do you feel stuck? Let us help you get unstuck. Are you ready to take action and get your own private bank? Please call Private Banking Strategies at 817-200-4777 or visit us at www.privatebankingstrategies.com.